The Book of Zephaniah. Judgment, doom, and surprise, hope. Welcome to the Book of Zephaniah, where things start off dark and a little doomy, but hang in there. It's not all gloom and judgment. If you like your prophet straight talking, Zephaniah is your guy. He doesn't sugarcoat things. In fact, the first couple of chapters might feel like you're getting caught in a heavenly storm of judgment. But stick with it, because by the end, Zephaniah reveals a message of hope and restoration that makes all the intense parts totally worth it. Ready to dive in? Let's go! Zephaniah's main message: doom, gloom, and more doom. Zephaniah, our prophet for the day, comes on the scene with some pretty heavy news. God is fed up with the idolatry and wickedness running rampant in Judah and the surrounding nations, and he's about to bring the hammer down. Zephaniah doesn't waste any time getting to the point. He's like that friend who cuts right to the chase in a conversation. And the chase here? It's God's judgment. In the first chapter alone, Zephaniah talks about wiping everything off the face of the earth. Everything. It's like God's doing a celestial spring cleaning and nothing is safe. Not the animals, not the people, not even the fish in the sea. So yeah, the opening of Zephaniah can feel a bit like watching a disaster movie unfold in slow motion. But don't panic, because Zephaniah has more to say than just everything's doom. The day of the Lord. An epic warning. One of the big themes in Zephaniah is the day of the Lord, which is not your typical happy-go-lucky kind of day. This is a day of reckoning, a day when God's going to set things straight. Zephaniah describes it with some seriously intense imagery. Think darkness, gloom, and trumpet blasts. Basically, this is a no-nonsense day where God is cleaning house. But here's the thing. This day of judgment isn't just about punishment. It's about purification. God's not wiping everything out because he's angry for no reason. He's doing it to get rid of all the sin and injustice that have piled up. It's like when your room gets so messy that you just have to throw everything into a giant trash bag and start fresh. That's what God's up to here. Judgment for everyone. No, really, everyone. Zephaniah doesn't just have bad news for Judah. He's got a whole list of nations that are about to get the godly smackdown. The Philistines? Judgment. Moab and Ammon? Judgment. Cush and Assyria? You guessed it, judgment. It's like Oprah's favorite things. But instead of cars, it's divine judgment. You get judgment, and you get judgment. Everyone gets judgment. Oprah Winfrey voice change. Okay, maybe not the funniest image, but the point is that no one is off the hook. This isn't about picking favorites or showing partiality. Everyone, whether they're inside or outside of Judah, is held accountable for their actions. God's justice is going global, people. But wait, there's hope after all. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all this judgment talk, don't worry. Zephaniah doesn't leave us hanging. In chapter 3, the tone shifts dramatically. It's like God takes a deep breath and says, okay, now let's talk about the good stuff. God's character voice. And boy, does the good stuff come. Zephaniah proclaims that after the judgment, God will restore his people. He talks about God gathering the scattered, purifying their lips, and giving them a new hope. Suddenly, the darkness of the previous chapters is replaced by a bright future where God is with his people, protecting them and rejoicing over them. Yep, you got that right. God is rejoicing. One of the most beautiful verses in the entire book is when Zephaniah says that God will rejoice over you with singing. It's a rare glimpse of the emotional side of God, showing us that even after all the judgment, he's still a loving father who finds joy in his people. Restoration, a new beginning for the humble. The key to this future restoration, humility. Zephaniah makes it clear that God's not restoring just anyone. He's looking for those who are humble and seek righteousness. It's a reminder that while judgment is coming for the wicked, there's always an open door for those who turn back to God. The remnant of humble, faithful people will experience God's protection and love. They won't have to live in fear or shame anymore. Instead, they'll be a part of a new, purified community where God is their leader, their provider, and their protector. So in conclusion, lessons from Zephaniah. So what's the takeaway from the book of Zephaniah? It's a reminder that God's judgment and mercy go hand in hand. Yes, he's serious about confronting sin and injustice, but he's also passionate about restoring and rebuilding his people. The day of the Lord isn't just about destruction. It's about clearing the way for something better. God's ultimate goal is to renew his people so they can live in peace, righteousness, and the full joy of his presence.